Good morning, everyone. I'm Derek. Welcome to There Will Be Cars. So here on this channel, I get the chance to review new vehicles that manufacturers send me, and I bring you my driving impressions. So there will be trucks, there will be SUVs, there will be crossovers, and of course, there will be cars. This week, I've had the chance to drive a car that's probably the rarest one I've ever reviewed on this channel, because the manufacturer is only going to make 60 of these. Let's take a look. This is the 2021 Lexus RC F Fuji Speedway Edition. Lexus put the RCF on a diet to create this car. You guessed it, that means it put a lot of carbon fiber parts on this. So you've got the carbon fiber front splitter, carbon fiber hood, carbon fiber roof, side skirts, and this big fixed wing that's inspired by the RCF GT3 race car. There's also a carbon fiber diffuser out back. Lexus went a couple of steps further and they gave the Fuji Speedway Edition a set of 19-inch lightweight forged BBS wheels wrapped in Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's. And then behind those wheels is a set of carbon ceramic brakes. Lexus even went so far as to swap out the regular mufflers for titanium mufflers. We all know there are two major ways to make a car quicker, and that's to increase power, shed weight, or ideally do both. Lexus went with shedding weight. The problem is they don't really advertise how much weight they saved by putting all these parts on the Fuji Speedway Edition. The Fuji Speedway Edition has the same 5-liter naturally aspirated V8 that other RCFs have. That means 472 horsepower and 395 pound-feet of torque. What I love about this package is it looks like the ultimate expression of the RCF. Lexus's F division is supposed to be about the most potent performance cars the brand can make, and this certainly has the look. In fact, it has a SEMA show car look to it. I know it may not be for everyone, but for those who want something that's just, you know, out there, very aggressive looking, this is that car. In fact, I think it looks great. You know, I can see a lot of people wanting to make their RCF look like this. Now, of course, there is a catch. So, carbon ceramic brakes, ton of carbon fiber from factory. Yeah. The catch is the price. So a regular RCF starts at basically $66,000. The Fuji Speedway Edition is substantially more. And of course you have to take in the fact that this is a limited production model. The Fuji Speedway Edition starts at $97,000 and change. And my tester here, with the triple beam LED headlights and the Mark Levinson audio system and navigation package, stickers for over $102,000. Lexus keeps the exterior color palette very simple. So there's a semi-matte white and then this cloudburst gray. Inside, it's even simpler because there's only one colorway. this red and black combo. There's a whole lot of red in here. It's on the door panels. They even incorporated it into the carbon fiber trim. It's even the carpeting down in the footwells. You get this little red section on the steering wheel. Of course, contrast stitching. I think they used way too much red in here, but I get it because, you know, red and black is a sort of shorthand for a sporty car interior. One thing I love about being in here is the seats. They already have the racy look to them, and these bolsters are great. For me personally, they hit all the right spots. You know, they give me support without making me feel like I'm being squeezed by a vice. I also like this big centrally mounted tack. Now, I do think the paddle shifters could be a little taller and a little wider just to make hitting them even easier when you're flying down the road. Still not a fan of the fact that the screen in the middle is not a touch screen, but I am getting more and more used to this trackpad. Still not my favorite, but it's not as frustrating as it used to be. You just really have to do things the way it wants you to do them. Once you learn that system, it's a lot less frustrating. You got the drive controls here, traction control, launch control. One interesting exclusion is any sort of switchgear for the torque vectoring differential, which you can get in other RCFs, but it's not available on the Fuji Speedway edition. This is another one of my favorite parts inside this car, is the shift knob. And, you know, this is something that the Fuji Speedway edition shares with other RCFs. To me, it's perfectly placed, but it's also just the perfect height. It just feels natural, like it's in the exact right spot, exact right height. I love it. I also really love the Mark Levinson sound system. It's one of my favorite parts of any new Lexus. The system is always clear, it's always potent, really love it. It's raining right now, so it's a little hard to see, but one thing you gotta get used to being inside this car is seeing that wing in your rear view. Now, it does cut into visibility, obviously. You're always aware of it, but I haven't found it obnoxiously large, or, you know, I haven't felt like, oh, this could be dangerous. Like, it's really cutting into my visibility. It's really not that bad. So I've got good news and bad news. The good news is I'm gonna take the RC F Fuji Speedway edition out on the road to give you my driving impressions. The bad news is the day I decide to film is the one day out of the year that it rains here in the Phoenix area. But I'll do my best to convey to you, you know, how the steering, how the braking is, how the power delivery is. Now, of course, for some of that, I'm gonna have to rely on my memory from driving this on dry roads. Anyway, stay tuned. So I'm just gonna keep this in normal mode for right now, just to give you an idea of what this is like in a more everyday setting. Last year, I had a chance to drive a regular RCF for a week. And I have to admit, before I got into it, I didn't have the best idea of what made Lexus's F cars so special. But when I took it out onto some back roads and really got into the throttle, really opened it up, it became clear to me. It was just the kind of car Lexus wanted it to be, because it was a luxury performance coupe. So around town, it was comfortable, it was quiet, it was civilized, it didn't feel like, you know, it was rough and unrefined. It felt like a Lexus. But then when I put it into its Sport S and Sport S Plus, it really came alive. And the more I drove it, the faster I drove it, the more I realized, you know, the steering was just the right weight. It wasn't overly heavy like it can be in some cars' performance modes. The brakes were really easy to modulate, and the engine loved revs. It didn't seem to be all that potent down low, but it loved revs. The higher I got into the rev range, the longer I kept my foot down, the better it got, the sweeter it got. Overall, I get the same impressions from the Fuji Speedway edition. You know, I've got it in normal mode right now. The ride is a little firm, but you know, it's not brutal, it's not uncomfortable. I don't feel like, oh wow, this is way too stiff and way too harsh. Certain road surfaces, the tires can kind of hum, but overall, yeah, just you know, it's not a radical departure from the regular RCF, and that's a good thing. Now here in a minute, I'm gonna put it in Sport S. Two differences I have felt between this and the regular RCF are pretty small, and they have to do with the brakes. Now, the regular RCF, it seemed like it was so easy to modulate the brakes at any speed. This one, there've been a few times where just that initial contact point, if I jump on it too soon, you can feel a little snatch and grab. If I use a little bit of a lighter touch, that's not an issue. And then there've been a couple of times where at a certain speed, when I'm slowing down, I can hear a groan from the carbon ceramic brakes. But other than that, you know, not really any huge changes in terms of, you know, the everyday driving feel of this car compared to a regular RCF. So I've got it in the Sport S mode, and just to give you an idea of the steering, yeah, I mean, it's pretty snappy off center. And then when I get into curves, it doesn't feel like they've pulled all of the boost out of the steering. Personally, I like a little bit of a lighter touch, you know, and this car has it. I don't feel like it's vague or, you know, over boosted in turns. It provides some resistance without feeling like I have to, you know, muscle it into every single turn. Another thing I like about this car is, okay, yeah, being a naturally aspirated V8, it doesn't produce the horsepower and torque that like a twin turbo BMW M or Mercedes AMG engine produces. You know, it's less than 500 horsepower, but I feel like it's a nice sweet spot. It's quick enough, but it doesn't make you feel like you're gonna die when you flatten the gas. A couple days ago, I went out to just give this a shakedown run, and you know, these back roads out here are pretty empty most of the time. So I had the chance to put the throttle all the way down, even flat out. Like, you know, I didn't feel any tire spin or anything like that. I didn't feel like it wanted to break loose, which, don't get me wrong, that can be entertaining in super powerful cars. But after a while, when you feel that squirm, like to me, after the fourth, fifth time of feeling that, the novelty wears off, you know. And that's what I love about this car is, you know, it's more than enough power for most people, you know, not the most in the world, but it's a healthy amount, and the tires have no problem handling it. All right, here we go, straighten out. Nice and linear, no drama. And yeah, you know, you get into the higher RPM, the higher speeds, and it just gets that much sweeter. You get the thrill of the sound and the acceleration, but you don't have that, it's not tempered with that, you know, wide-eyed fear of what's gonna happen next. One more thing about this 5-liter V8 up front. A lot of times, there's the temptation to compare what you hear from the engine and the exhaust to a big wild animal like a bear or a tiger or a lion. Oh, the roar and all that. And I get that because, you know, some cars have that primal feel and sound to them. But this car is different to me because I don't get those images in my head. This car makes me love its engine, not for what it makes me think of, but for what it is, because it has this mechanical and, yes, digital sound to it. And usually digital is not a good word to use in describing a car. I typically don't like using it. But this car makes me love its engine for what it is. It is mechanical, it is digital, it is computerized, but I love it because it comes across that way. And I never thought I would say that about an engine, but that's one way in which this car is different. And I mean different from pretty much any other car I've tested. I love that it's mechanical and digital. So let's see, in this curve, go through it. still feel the weight of this thing because, you know, it's still close to 2 tons. You never lose sight of how heavy this car is, but the steering to me in Sport S is, you know, it's the right weight. Like, it just feels natural, it feels approachable, usable. Like, it feels, certain cars, the steering can be so heavy, it almost feels antagonistic. You know, like you have to kind of fight against it a little bit. And I don't get that impression in this car. You know, it just kind of flows into things. So let's switch it into manual mode. Just like the engine and the power delivery, you know, this is kind of old school in the grand scheme of things. You know, Lexus doesn't put a twin clutch gearbox in this. It's just an 8-speed, you know, traditional automatic. It's smooth around town, and then you've got these paddle shifters behind the wheel spokes for when you want to snap off shifts yourself. I've been satisfied with the performance of the gearbox just in its regular automatic mode. Now I've got it in Sport S Plus. Yeah, no squirm from the back end. I mean, it's just real solid. Real solid. Yeah, it's just so approachable, you know, even in its most aggressive drive mode. You know, now granted, I've got the traction control still on for obvious reasons, but even, you know, having a little fun out here, you know, I don't feel like this is unsettled or anything like that. One thing I've discovered about Sport S Plus mode is it responds instantly to any imperfection in the road. I know it's kind of a cliche, but yeah, you could drive over a dime and tell what year it is. You know, it's not that it's harsh or brutal. It's just that it's so responsive that you're constantly, you know, bobbing up and down. You are moving around constantly. And I remember the other day I took it out. Yeah, it's pretty bad here. I remember when I took it out the other day, I almost started getting motion sickness because you're constantly moving, you know, in these little ways, but it is unrelenting. Well, everyone, thank you for watching my review of the 2021 Lexus RC F Fuji Speedway Edition. If you liked what you saw, please go ahead and like this video. And if you haven't subscribed to There Will Be Cars, I would appreciate it if you would do it. I love bringing new content to this channel, and I hope you're here to see it. Thanks.